Hi guys, it's Fiona and welcome to the Sunday School at Home for Nasquare Presbyterian. I'm so glad you've joined us and there's going to be a fun activity afterwards. So if you haven't already, you can pause right now and you can watch the Holy Moly video, and you're going to watch the one for Joseph too. And there's a link at this in the description below. So this story was from Genesis, and it's starting out, remember that who Joseph was, and Joseph was in the story, and he was introduced in Genesis 39, and he was thrown in jail. So that's where this starts. Remember where Joseph is. Now, this story that we were just watching in the video was about Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is not a name. I don't know if you remember what it is. It's a title of a ruler of Egypt. So it means king. So if you remember in the video what happened, he was having frightening dreams. And he was having these dreams, and I don't know if those were the dreams. Remember in the little bubble. And this is in Genesis 41:25. And what he didn't realize was that God was speaking to Pharaoh through the dreams, but Pharaoh didn't realize that. So he was very scared because in part of the dreams, there were 7 big fat cows. And then the dream went on and 7 skinny cows came along and looked like they ate up the big fat cows, and everybody forgot about the big fat cows. And then there was also 7 good corn stalks, and they were eaten up by withered corn stalks. So Pharaoh didn't know what that meant. So he went to his wise men. I don't know if you remember that. And that's in Genesis 41. He went to the wise men, and they were Pharaoh's advisors, but all they wanted to do was please him. So they made up stories like, oh, the dreams meant, you know, nothing, you should just think of something else. And that didn't help because he kept having these frightening dreams. So the cupbearer was part of the story, and he'd been imprisoned with Joseph. Remember Joseph? And he said, you know, there's someone that can interpret the dreams. So Joseph, if you keep reading in the story, if you have a Bible, he came and he accurately told the Pharaoh what the dreams meant. And it meant that Egypt was going to have 7 years of good harvest, followed by 7 years of famine, and that they had to prepare, the Egyptians had to prepare for that famine, meaning they had to put away some of the good harvest for when there was a bad time. And so the Pharaoh was so happy that the dreams were interpreted correctly that he gave Joseph his ring, and then he gave him some fine clothes, and he said, you are going to be overseeing keeping the harvest for the lean years. So during the good years, you'll be keeping that aside. So you can read that story in Genesis. So we're now going to do the craft that goes along with the story. And so find your, in your pack, you can find the craft booklet. You'll see it looks like this. And you can open it up. What I'm going to do, you can have many different, what you're going to need first, you're going to need markers. I only have 2 colors, but you probably have lots of colors. You're going to need scissors. You're going to need glue or tape. I don't have glue, but if you have glue, that would work better. So the first thing we're going to do is color the cows. I'm going to color them in pink. You can color them in whatever color you'd like. So while we're thinking of this, what do you think would be a way that if you knew there was going to be a famine, that you could prepare for that famine? Do you think you could put away some food for yourself, maybe for your neighbors, maybe for your family? And how would you know there's going to be a famine? Well, the only way you would know was if God told you, because we wouldn't know ahead of time. What do you have at home that you think you could put aside in case there was some kind of famine to come? Maybe cans of food, maybe rice. You can think about things that you might be able to use. So I've colored the cows, and the other thing we're going to color is the wheat. So I colored the cows pink, but you can color them whatever color you want. And I'm going to color the, also color these little wheat guys. I'm going to color them yellow. But you know what would be nice is if you took them and maybe made like alternate colors, something like that. That'd be kind of neat too. Whatever you think. You probably have more colors than me. I'm going to make some of the men pink completely. Well, the corn stalks. Although maybe corn is, what color do you think corn is? Yellow or brown or? The next thing you're going to do is cut out all these little pieces of wheat and cows. How much cows do you think you should put aside if there was going to be a famine? And how much wheat? So how many of these, we're cutting out 7 cows. And we're cutting out 7 wheat. How many do you think we should put aside? How many should we eat today or this year? And how many should we put aside for another year? You think if you knew that it was going to be 7 years of famine, that you should put away every year? You know, there's 7 years of prosperity and 7 years of famine. You should put aside a 7th every year. So maybe eat the 6 cows and then keep 1 aside, meat from the cow. And who did the Pharaoh trust? Did he trust the magicians? Or did he trust Joseph? And why do you think he trusted Joseph? You think he knew that he was speaking for God? So another question is, how do you think you could help your church think about the future? So one kind of thing to think about is all the resources that we're using now. And what's going to happen if we use all the resources up in the future? So you think about recycling, reducing waste to conserve for future generations. And how can you help your church? How can you let people know that that's important, that you do it, that older people do it? So the next thing we're going to do is make the pyramid. So this part is left, you see it. So you're going to cut the straight lines. You see where the scissors are? And we're going to fold the dotted lines. So I'm going to do that, and you can do it too. And what we're making here is a pyramid. I'm cutting along the blue lines. The idea here is this is where we're going to store the extra. So you can make your decision how much is going to be stored for later and how much you're going to consume now. So now we've cut this out, we're going to make it into a pyramid. And so there's dotted lines and dashed lines, and they show you where to fold. So I'm just following the arrows, and I folded it, and I folded it, and I folded it. And now I just made it into a pyramid. You just have to follow the dots and the lines, and you make it into a little pyramid. Now, if you take your glue, I don't have glue because it says glue, but I'm going to use tape. And you can just tape that little. See, there's a little lip. You can tape that, and that'll make it into the pyramid. So what we're going to do is decide whether you want food needed now or food needed later. And I'm going to write on here food needed now. And then I'm going to write on the other side, food needed later. And this is where you make your decision. You can decide if you're going to, how much you're going to have now, and you can glue or tape the food needed now. And you can decide where you should store your food needed later. So I think probably I would save a couple for food needed later. And I save the rest for food needed now. The corn. And then the cows. How many cows now? How much meat now? Food needed now. And how much for later? Now, if we were together as a group, we could decide together and we could have a discussion what you think. Whether we should use all the resources up now and leave nothing for the future, or whether we should save some for the future. All right, thank you guys. So this is, you can keep going and make this a little nicer, and maybe you might change your mind how much we should be consuming now and how much we should be saving for later. It might be something to talk to your family about. But before we go, just like to say a little prayer. So you're going to close your eyes. We'll say the prayer. Dear God, every day we discover problems, and every day we look for people to help solve them. And help us to recognize those people. We may be surprised who they are. Thank you, God. And really, thanks for your time, and come back to see the next one. Maybe a different teacher, but it'll be great, and miss you guys. Thank you.